Imagine this. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings. This is your house. But is it your home? Hi, I'm Nelson DeMello, and join me as we try to find our home beyond our borders.
I don't know. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good take.
Y'all, I just got back from watching Sinners, and I'm a little late to the party. I know. It's May 5th. Yeah, it's May 5th. Cinco de Mayo. Wow. And watched the movie, so I'm late on that. This is going to come out late. I say all that just because, I don't know why I say that. I just give perspective, like, oh, why is this random, video going to come out, or it comes out, like 2 months after. No, but I will try to make this one come out quicker. I got some videos that are kind of pressing, but dude, kind of amazed. I actually did have to, not that I had to hear it, but I was curious about Ruslan's video on this. I think he might have missed a few things that are kind of important to the whole story. But before I get into all that, let's talk about how Sinners has to do with Black Panther, has to do with Kendrick. So first of all, the director, okay? Both movies are the same, have the same director. I'm not going to get into too many details about characters and what they say and this and this and that. It's just big ideas. Because that's all I'm good for, to be honest. But okay, so I'm going to have to rant on Black Panther cuz I think we missed culturally, we just missed the most, maybe not the most obvious, and I apologize for saying that, but maybe the biggest idea, the most powerful message in that story that wasn't really talked about, I think. I don't know. I also don't listen to a lot of people talk, so maybe they did talk about it and I was just, not around to listen to it. But I bring it up because this director, he likes to ask a question. He likes to ask the audience a question. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've only seen 2 movies of his, and I've really, really enjoyed them both because of this thing. There's a story going on, but he's trying to have a dialogue with you at the same time. Unless unless his movies just hit different, But let's assume that. I'm look, for the rest of the video, I'm assuming that what I got out of it is exactly what he intended. All right. And I don't care if you think what other things, you're wrong. Okay. Just kidding. But okay. So I bring up this movie because Black Panther is, okay, there's a lot of, themes and nuances that go on in the movie, but there's this huge fight that's the whole movie essentially, and it's between Killmonger and Black Panther, right? But they represent 2 characters, real life characters, and I'm just gonna say it. I don't know how to build things up, like other people, but it's MLK and Malcolm X, and you're asking how? Okay, so I think it goes around this question of, okay, Wakanda has all of these weapons, futuristic technologies. They've now introduced themselves as one of the greatest world powers, on Earth. How are we going to behave? How are we going to portray ourselves, right? And Black Panther's approach is this thing of, hey, let's flip the narrative in the sense of, let's be the example that they were supposed to set, right? Now that we have the power, let us lead in a different direction. That's what T'Challa wanted, right? That's what Black Panther wanted. Malcolm X and, Killmonger, I should say. Killmonger then said, I have all this power. Let's flip the script and oppress those who oppressed us. So then this begs the question, and this is what I was talking about. Then the director is asking us, if we had the power to flip the script, would we pave a new way, or would we just flip the script, change the narrative, like flip the narrative and be the oppressors, right? I don't think that's really talked about. And I was actually kind of shy. I mean, I didn't have a podcast at the time, but I was even shy about talking about that because essentially that Black Panther was a black movie for black people. And so actually the director is asking, I mean, and he's a black guy, I guess he can make that question, and I'm just the messenger. Yo, don't shoot the messenger. But essentially he's asking the black community, if you had the power, what would you do? I think that's powerful. And so why I tie these two movies together is because Sinners has these deep, like, motifs and things are going through this movie, and he's asking the black community a question. And so I didn't get a chance to watch Creed, which I know is crazy. Like, not only like film people love the movie, but like just your average Joe person love the movie. But I just didn't get to it. I don't know. And honestly, I've only been into movies recently, and I gotta go with my wife. You know, we gotta make a date out of it. I'm not gonna go solo dolo to a movie. What do you think I don't have time for that. My goodness. Unless, you know, this Q mid-roll.
Wait, hold up. If at any point in this you said, dang, I never thought about it like that, please subscribe. What are you doing, man? I'm trying to pay my bills. Okay, anyways, let's get back to the serious stuff. All right, see you.
Pay my bills. Doug, I would happily be known as the pay my bills guy. Easily. No problem. No shame with that. No, but yeah, I just, you know, I keep bragging, bro. I'm working 2 jobs right now. What do you expect me to do? I got a wife, I got a dog, I gotta take care of them, you know what I'm saying? Oh my God. Anyways, okay, sorry. How does this tie into Sinners? So, spoiler alert, which, I mean, by the time this comes out, if you haven't watched it, screw you, you know? But, okay. Sorry, that was rude. But kind of true. Okay, so what happens in this movie? I'm excited. Sorry, I literally just got out of the movie. It's like late. That's why there's like weird lights. Yeah, anyways. So the movie juxtaposes straight from the beginning, okay? It has, because it starts with the end kind of deal. Like, movies do that a lot, but it starts with the end. This guy has like scratch on his face, and he's holding just the neck of a guitar, and he ran to his father, and it's like kind of like this prodigal thing. He's like, let go of the guitar, and then it flashes one day earlier. Okay, cool. Well, you got these people coming in, they're gangsters, they've fought in wars and all that stuff, and it's like Peaky Blinders, but black dudes, I guess. The twins. Michael B. Jordan plays them both, which actually is phenomenal. Anyways, and I bring up the Ruslan thing because they go through like the cast interviews. So, and my critique on that is like, the cast is not going to understand the vision of the director, right? In the same way that like a general has an idea of what a platoon is going to do or whatever the case is, but the soldiers just have the orders. They don't have like the why, right? In the same sense, I don't know if you can gather like the message of the movie by what the actors are saying about the movie. They can talk about their experience and what they're learning and what, you know, all that stuff, but it doesn't, the motif of the movie, when it's all cohesive and put together, that's on the director and maybe producers, you know what I mean? That's like, of course the actors will have like a say in things and say like, oh, can we try this? And then like, that works. It's a collaboration. I understand. But like, they just don't represent really. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but in my head and how a movie is put together, like I think about producing music or whatever. Like, if I get a guitarist in here to, you know, play a riff or something, he's not going to know like how it ties into the lyrics or whatever. He's just doing the riff, you know? So in the same, that's what I'm saying. Okay. But to move on. So they talk about that. They critique that a little bit, and they harp on, well, I mean, they don't really harp on. They try to. Okay, I don't. they give a lot of information, and I think it's good information. I think they miss a couple things, like vampires and holy water have always been a thing. Like since I don't even know supernatural. Is that vampires or just demons? Like, man, I don't know, but it's just like a thing, like monsters, like werewolves. It's all the same stuff. It's wooden, it's like crosses, wooden stakes, silver, garlic, holy water, like all this stuff kills all that stuff. You know what I mean? And that's not like a thing that they introduced in this movie as some kind of, nah, man, dude, just watch like Scooby-Doo. You know what I mean? I don't know, but that's another thing. What I thought was interesting. So and this is the kind of the connection here. So you have church folk in the church dressed in white. They're like, what's going on outside? What is going on? And then you have this nightlife going on. And as the movie progresses, they're honestly like metaphorically, like flirting with the devil a little bit. They are, doing things for money. They're fornicating. They are, debauchery, all this stuff. They're partying. They're doing all these things, right? And I think there is a juxtaposition. But the interesting thing is, you don't see the juxtaposition because it only focuses on the nightlife. But I think you have to keep in mind that there is this narrative. There is this other world at play. And this is where the question comes in. That we'll get to in a second, but the whole thing with the vampires needing to be invited in, and like, okay, so there's a few things there that I know I'm all over the place. There's a few things that I kind of see. Okay, one, which they saw too, like vampires and their symbolism for sin and the devil and all these and evil, right? Like how you have to allow them in, and they're enticing and tempting and this and that, right? And they try to give you what you think you want and all this stuff. Okay, so there's that parallel. There's another parallel that I only know because there was one Halloween that I got scared, like senseless out of. I don't know. It had a combination of like my dad telling me stuff about, it's like pseudo Pentecostal, like, oh, Halloween's the worst day of the year, for Satanists. So I looked into Satanism, and apparently they also have that rule. So I thought that was interesting, but I think that's like, again, historically, that might be a function of, honestly, like dude, I don't even know the guy's name anymore, but the guy who started the Satanist, the branch of Satanist church, the Satanist church, they probably just pulled from like vampire and Gothic lore and all these things. Just historically speaking, it's not like it wasn't the Satanists came first and then the vampires. Vampires have been around since freaking, the medieval ages or whatever. Okay. But just, I thought that was interesting. Just that, which all kind of fits in this, like, oh, evil, right? And yeah, anyways, I don't want to get much deeper into that because I know some Satanists are just like celebrate humanity and they're not like evil or anything, or they're Satanists. They're not satanic. That's a whole other thing. Too scary for YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Whatever. But there is that thing that's going on. The hoodoo that happens, right? There's those themes as well. And they were like, oh, they're trying to celebrate hoodoo and Christianity, takes a da-da-da, whatever. But this is what's actually interesting to me. The hoodoo only happens in the context of this nightlife, of this dance with evil and dance with sin. It's almost like, in my head, because she offers the solution and the solution barely works. You know what I mean? And it barely works because, they're like, oh, use the steak knives, use the garlic, or not steaks, use steaks as knives, use garlic and, all this stuff, and that will protect you. But it didn't do it. You know what I mean? It didn't do it all the way. So to me, it's almost like this thing of whatever Solomon's, like the book of knowledge is, where he's like, writes descriptions of all the demons and what they don't like and da 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 whatever, all that stuff. It's like playing with fire. I think there's that theme and element there if you understand this duality that's happening like outside of the screen, right? Which again, I think plays into this idea, right? Like if we look at Black Panther and see it as a cultural question for African Americans, then we're looking at this movie and we're seeing down south where voodoo is super popular, like in Louisiana, you know what I mean? And southern Louisiana, I guess, like Baton Rouge and all these places. There is like a lot of that, right? And that's all, like even in Brazil, there's the same stuff. There's macumba, right? That which is all from Africa, like the dark magic, black magic, whatever you want to call it, and it's all there, right? And so there's this idea of like playing with that, getting involved in that, and then being a part of this nightlife and trying to kind of finagle your way into getting things and not dying and not losing your life and this and that, but like getting enough, and then, but I think that temptation piece of, because and like Ruslan brought up the idea that greed was the first thing that opened up doors, literally, in the movie. Lust was the next one, and da-da-da. I don't think it's the 7 deadly sins or whatever, but it's this idea that you allow evil into this thing, right? And this whole time, as all of this is going, you have the main character who has this beautiful voice and this and that. And here we go. So Kendrick Lamar's Reincarnated it's basically the music, not basically his music video. I'm saying there's a scene in the movie that basically is a music video for that song. And essentially he's playing, and then all of like his ancestors, future and past, are like all around, and they're dancing and doing this stuff. And like I even think there's like a Jimi Hendrix reference in there. And so and all of this is going on, and that's what the white vampires. I think there's also this thing, like this movie's so, it's like layered so nicely, like a pyramid. And I think Black Panther does the same thing, where one of the middle layers is this idea that white people were vampires and sucked the blood out of black excellence. You know what I mean? And I thought that was interesting. So like, and again, I think it works in different layers. I don't think the director is equating white people to evil. It's this thing of white people did this thing just on the surface culturally, and took from them. And because a vampire was like, I want your like voice, I want your thing, and you're going to free me, right? And like this whole thing, and there's exploitation in the beginning of the movie, you find out at the end of the movie, and all this stuff with the guy who sells the land that you're gonna go and kill them all at the end, and so there is this idea, right, that white people exploit the black. So that's one element to it, and I think that that's a lot of talking points, right? And I know people like, I don't want to say feed off of that like it's a bad thing, but like it does kind of what do you call it, like perpetuate this narrative that is being told. And who am I? I'm a white dude, sure, yeah. I'm also Brazilian, so I am a minority. I know I'm white passing, da-da-da. I don't need to excuse myself. Truth is truth, right? But I want to go to that deeper layer, because that's where the question is. And so you have this thing where there's this flirting of sin and this and that. And where I thought, like, it ties the bow to to this in 3 ways, which is the man's about to die. He starts saying, the main character is about to die. He starts saying the Lord's Prayer. The vampire starts saying the Lord's Prayer as well. It's like, what the heck's going on? This and that. Michael B. Jordan stabs a vampire. He dies. All these people die. And there's this hint of like, hey, there is redemption when you call upon the Lord. Okay, there's that. That's one thing. And then he drives back to the church because he promised his dad, hey, I'll show up on time on church the next morning. And then he shows up and then it's like the first scene, right? And he's all doing this and he's like, repent, stop doing this thing, like come back and be a part of this. Why I brought up this 2 worlds thing. They're all dressed in white. No weapons. Like there's a huge juxtaposition. No weapons. The kids are front and center. They're singing. There is innocence. There's no idea of what happened during the night, right? And they're like safe in their little community, just praising the Lord. And I think that's the real juxtaposition going on with Hoodoo and the nightlife and this and that with this life. And he's like, repent, drop the guitar, like be with us. And then he like doesn't leave, right? And Ruslan, he brings up the point and the critique of like, hey, we ought to welcome okay, so which I think he does have a point, right? The best musicians, the best artists, and this and this and that, they grow up in church, they become the best. And it's because you just have so much time to do repetition. Like a lot of these people try to start bands and this and that, and there's too much ego, you guys, too much laziness, and they don't get together, they don't play, they don't practice. It doesn't happen. With church members, you rehearse one time, you do a sound check, you go through the songs again, you play, your set. When I was growing up playing drums, our worship leader, our youth service was at 7 on Saturday. We would get there at 2 p.m. and just practice. I remember so many blisters on my hands, bleeding from my hands from just how much I was playing. And that's the life of a Christian musician. Like that's just what you do. You just play and play and play and play because everyone's there for the Lord. Everyone is there to serve. Everyone's there, to do their best and this and that. And you get a lot of reps in, So there's that aspect. But again, in the context of Southern Baptist 1930s church, no guitars, bro, nothing. Like drop the guitar and go on. And then, but there is even scenes of like moments of like, hey, you're not sticking around in this town. You're going to go to that nice little town with the nice black folk and this and that. And you're going to live in peace with cause that town is like Christian based and they're good, they're good people and they're going to take care of you and all this stuff. And then the main character's like, no, I want to go to Chicago. I want to do this and that. Cool. He's driving off. I think the movie ends. And then credits. And then a scene comes up. He's like 80 years old or whatever. He's, playing, doing his thing. And then lo and behold, a surprise. I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm going to give you all the spoilers. And I'm like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. Lo and behold, a surprise happens. And me saying that, obviously you think, oh, somebody's alive. And yes, somebody's alive, but not necessarily who you expect, perhaps. But then it was the same theme. It was like, hey, like he finished the set. He was the only one at the bar or whatever. And the bouncer was like, hey, I got somebody willing to pay to hear you play. You want to let them in? And he's like, yeah. And that was the invite. He's like, yeah, y'all can come in. And he's like, whoa, uh-oh. He came in. I think it was crazy. So I think it was really cool that Ruslan actually brought up the prodigal son story because I thought the same thing. But he said, oh, they kind of butchered it or like they couldn't do that because of the Christian thing. But I think it was a good twist because after so long, having that encounter with evil so long, still flirting with evil, still flirting with that thing, ambition, pride, that the money, you know, dude. He's done. He finished his set. Everyone's out of the bar. He's drinking. You know, he's winding down, and then he's like, "Hey, $200. Somebody just wants to see you play a little." And he sold himself again. You know, and then they come in and they're like, "Whoa, what that?" You know, kind of like, "Hey, why are you alive? How did you do this?" And he kind of explained like, "Oh, I promise you, brother, you know." Whatever, I told you so many times, spoilers. I told you, brother, that I wasn't going to kill you, and I didn't. Or I told my brother that I wasn't going to kill you. But right now, dude, I can make you live forever. You know, you're about to die soon, and I can make you live forever. And he's like, nah, I don't want to. So it was that, again, that teetering on the fence of evil. And I think that really ties it up because the movie's called Sinners, you know? And why do I bring up Kendrick Lamar? I think he might have had a huge part in, well, I know that he was super inspired by Black Panther, and that's why that album came out, Black Panther album, which, phenomenal, by the way. That isn't brought up as like one of his albums, but easily top 5 for me, at least. But why, again, with the scene of like this artist's present, past, and future, like carrying this energy, this soul, this thing that carries on the legacy, you know. So that's shown in Reincarnated, but even this idea of flirt, like this reminds me of Damn a little bit, you know what I mean? This reminds me of, like, I don't know, a lot of his ideas, I guess, you know, when you put them together. So I think that's just how it all ties up. So, and that's why I think this movie is really interesting. Oh, I mean, other than the actual production, objectively, was great. But even from a Christian perspective, if you understand that there is this second narrative going on in the background of like blissful ignorance to all this evil and demonic forces, and this is what happens when you play around with evil. I mean, and that's even one of the phrases, like, look, you go out looking for the devil, he's going to find you, he's going to follow you, whatever his line is. But essentially, like, you go out doing your thing, devil's going to find you, you know? And the guy, yeah, he's like, dude, this is happening because, like, I mean, my dad warned me, and this is happening because I'm out here playing around, you know? And so, I think you put all these things together and you get one heck of a movie. Am I right? Whoa. Yeah, so, I mean, that's my 2 cents. And thank y'all if you listen. But, yeah, I guess the question becomes here, like, would you sell yourself? You know? Like, are you so attached to your ambitions that you would sell yourself? Something along the lines. Maybe I haven't worked out the question yet, but it's something like that, you know? Because again, like, you just look at Michael B. Jordan's characters, they stole, and what they had was a lie, you know? All they stole, and they connived and all these things so that they can do what they wanted. That was the legit thing that they wanted, which is to, you know, own a bar, like own a club. You know what I mean? Back home. And like, that was the case. And then it was just that grimy thing, like that gross thing of like making deals with devil, like making deals with evil and accepting the temptations. Like, that was kind of this theme, right? And so the question, it has to be along the lines, something there. And I mean, look, I even thought about, you know, the 40 acres and a mule thing, where, like, I know a lot of people lost their land because, like, and I'm still confused about that, like, just the history of it. But essentially, they got finagled, and it reversed back, and white people had it all, and they're back to being, it was like sharecropping, but I'm just so confused. But I think there is something there as well of, like, making deals with the devil, which again, white people, dog. I mean, if that just bottom line is the theme, bro. But I think it's deeper than that, because I think even modern times, you know, I don't like. I'm not. I mean, me definitely not. I'm out of the picture. But like, is that the question? I think it's deeper than the color of skin, though. But it's that thing of like making a deal. You're gonna, whatever. But yeah, see you guys. Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, follow, and remember, there is more to life, and that is good news. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.